everyone, I'm Jess.
And I'm Shweta.
And we both work at Westpac. Now, you might be thinking, what is a bank doing here talking to you about STEM? Well, let me ask you a question first. Oh, it's a bit tricky because you already have hands up. But hands up if you think Westpac is a financial institution or a bank.
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot of hands.
Nice.
All right, put your hands down. And hands up if you think Westpac is a fintech institution, financial technology institution. Less hands that time. All right, well, we're going to see if we can prove you wrong. We're going to start with a game. How much do you know about Westpac? So it's going to be a simple game of heads and tails. We're going to give you two statements, statement A and statement B. If you think A is correct, you put your hands on your head. If you think B is correct, you put your hands on your hips. So I'll get everyone to stand up. Question 1. A, Westpac was the first bank to launch electronic banking, EFTPOS. Or B, Westpac currently has the most EFTPOS machines in Australia. So if you think A is correct, put your hands on your heads. If you think B is correct, put your hands on your hips. I'm seeing lots of hands on heads. Lock in your answers. The correct answer is A. Westpac was the first bank to launch EFTPOS, electronic banking. So if you had your hands on your hips sitting down, so we were the first bank to launch electronic banking. And while that might not sound like revolutionary technology, it probably sounds pretty outdated to you guys. But back in the 1980s when it was introduced, it completely revolutionized banking. Before EFTPOS, people used cash and checks for their banking. And if you were lucky enough to have a credit card, it was all processed manually at the end of the day or the month. So well done to all of you who got that right. The next question is, A, Westpac released its banking app in 2015, or B, Westpac had the #1 banking app in Australia in 2024. The correct answer is B. Westpac had the #1 banking app in 2024. Yeah, so we had the #1 banking app in 2024, and we're actually proud to say we also had the #1 banking app in 2023 as well. In 2021, we did a complete redesign of the app, introducing the best features and the most functional design for our customers, and we're working hard to keep it at that #1 spot. So well done to everyone who got that right. Over to you, Sweta.
Thank you. So again, question 3, hands on heads for A, 18% of Westpac's total global employees work in technology, or hands on hips for B, 4.5% of Westpac's total global employees work in technology. Alrighty, so the right answer is A. A staggering 18% of our total global workforce work in technology, so that's essentially a fifth of all our roles that add up to nearly 10,000 people. At Westpac, we've got over 500 technology teams that you can work in and rotate through. So when we say the opportunities are endless, they really are. Moving on to our 4th question. Hands on heads for A, Westpac established its cybersecurity team in 2009. And hands on hips for B, Westpac established its cybersecurity team in 1998.
I'm seeing mixed ones for this.
Lock in your answers. This is our final question.
The correct answer is B.
Westpac established its cybersecurity team in 1998, so the 90s brought with it a huge surge in technology. But alongside that came a wave of new crime as well. So in response to this, Westpac set up its first cybersecurity detection team. Congratulations to those still standing, but now I'll get you to take a seat as we move on.
Thanks for playing, guys. That was great. All right, now that you've seen a snippet of how Westpac is leading in technology, I wanted to ask you again to put your hands up if you think Westpac is a fintech institution, financial technology. A lot more hands that time.
Good.
All right, now I want you to think of some STEM professionals, engineers, mathematicians, scientists, the list kind of goes on. What do all these STEM professionals have in common? Well, put very simply, they all work with computers. And so do people who work in banks. There's a common misconception that you need to study technology to work in technology, but that's far from the truth. There are so many transferable skills that you can use in technology. For example, a lot of us studied biology. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, biology doesn't relate to technology. How could I use biology? Well, it's more similar than you might think. It's all about form and function. In biology, you learn about physiology, the way the body works, and pathophysiology, what happens when things go wrong. For example, when you get a virus. When you get a virus, you feel sick, you're run down, you're more susceptible to getting other illnesses. Well, it's the same in cybersecurity, except the virus is digital and it's impacting a computer. When a computer gets a virus, it also doesn't work properly. You might be locked out of your files. You might even have your personal information stolen. Well, think of us at Westpac as the doctors for cyber. Cybercrime is on the rise with advancements such as AI and other technological advancements. But as cybercrime advances, so do our defences. We have incredible teams of people who break down complex cybercrime into easy-to-solve chunks. These people include ethical hackers, detection and response staff, and other awesome cyber specialists. Isn't that interesting, Zeta?
That's very interesting indeed, Jess. Cybercriminals are the modern-day bank robbers. The guns en masse are replaced with laptop and pieces of code. And as Jess mentioned earlier, we've got teams to take down these criminals. So let's take a look at how they work to protect us from these criminals. So meet my friend here, Jimmy. We've changed his name to protect his identity. Jimmy is in high school, just like all of you. He takes the train to and from school and spends his entire train trip on one of his many tech devices. Whilst on the train, Jimmy gets an email and he realizes it's his bank trying to contact him, telling him to update his password. He knows a strong password is very important, so he clicks onto it to see what's going on. But the problem here is Jimmy doesn't realize this is a fake, a phishing email. What's a phishing email, Jess?
A phishing email is when you think you're receiving an email from a trustworthy source, like your bank, but actually behind the email are cyber criminals impersonating the bank.
Interesting. So unknowingly, Jimmy logs in with his bank credentials. The problem here is the cyber criminals are now behind Jimmy's login and password and start using his bank credentials to make unauthorized payments. So a couple hours pass and Jimmy gets a banner notification through his Westpac app, alerting him to an unusual transaction. A question for all of you in the crowd today, so shout out your answers. What are some typical bank purchases you would expect to see on your account?
Shout them out. Woolworths, nice. Any others? V-Bucks?
Okay.
Macca's? Cool.
All right, let's take a look at Jimmy's purchase history. So, clothes, Fortnite V-Bucks.
Wait, what's that?
Huh? A bike from Turkey? Jimmy certainly did not buy a bike from Turkey. Jimmy realizes he's a victim of a cyber attack. But the phishing email isn't the only way the cyber criminals could have gotten a hold of Jimmy's login and password. Someone could have been looking over his shoulder when he entered his password on the train, or he could have just had a very easy to guess weak password. So again, a question for everyone in the crowd today. Who is the first person you would go to if something like this happened to you?
Shout them out. Bank? Yep. Parents?
Mom, okay.
The police? Yep, I heard
Okay.
the bank and the police.
Good answers, but I'm not really hearing the answer I was looking for though.
Neither am I.
Perhaps a superhero? Okay. Okay, seeing some confused faces. But hear me out, right? At Westpac, we believe not all superheroes wear capes. In fact, ours usually wear jeans. Our teams of cyber heroes monitor and improve the digital security while analyzing, detecting, and responding to these cyber incidents. So what you've seen here today is an example of our detection systems that have picked up an unusual transaction, such as a purchase of a bike from Turkey. So these trained cyber specialists then act, freezing Jimmy's account, preventing the cyber criminals from spending any further. Using STEM and evolving technologies, we in cybersecurity can help stop the cyber criminals in their games and start beating them at their own track. Between the cyber heroes at Westpac and the cyber criminals, it's always a game of cat and mouse, where we're trying to outsmart one another. So the future of banking is in your hands, needing to stay curious, always evolving, finding the next big form and function, and getting there faster than the criminals. So we've spoken a lot about cybersecurity because that certainly is our passion at Westpac. But we wouldn't be here today, or we wouldn't have our amazing cyber heroes if it wasn't for the work of our other STEM professionals, behind the scenes developing groundbreaking digital solutions. So you might be wondering, right, who are these people? So let's go back to Jimmy's example for a second. So when Jimmy accessed his Westpac app, he didn't think twice about who created the app, developed the app, tested the app, or developed its multi-factor authentication, MFA for short. And why doesn't Jimmy think about all of this? That's because he doesn't need to, since Westpac does the thinking for him. So I want you to reflect for a second. Do you still see Westpac as just a bank, or do you see Westpac as a fintech institution? I'll leave that thought in your mind as I continue. Again, the future of banking is in your hands. In fact, the future of STEM and how it supports the community is in your hands. So if you want to learn more about how you can be cyber safe and learn more about the opportunities at Westpac, do come visit our booth outside. But for the time being, that's pretty much all we have time for today. So we'll bring up Sonia and Beck and open the floor to any questions.
How would you go about getting a career in cybersecurity in Westpac?
So I actually think the grad program is one of the probably best ways to go about it. The good thing with the grad program is you have a cyber specialist program. So it's for 1 year and you get to try 2 different teams in cybersecurity, or you could go down the other grad route, which is a bit more rounded around technology, and you get to do 4 rotations over 2 years, and you get to try all different types. So you can try cyber, but you could also try completely different lenses of tech. So both are great ways.
So 4 out of the 5 of us here today have been grads, not me, but everybody else. In fact, Jess and Sweta, you heard from, are still currently grads. There's really awesome opportunities. So if you have any questions about the grad program, please come see us. Happy to have a chat, but it's a fantastic way into the bank in general, but also specifically tech.
How many hackers do you catch per year?
Good question. I don't have a number for you. As you can imagine, working in cybersecurity, a lot of the very sensitive data is kept under lock and key. I will say, as a bank, we do regularly have people attempting to hack our systems. All of the banks do and all of the big companies do. So we have to make sure that we are always in front of technology and have people working really hard to ensure that we don't allow that to happen. And to date, Westpac has never had a data breach. But we have lots of teams working really hard in the background, including ethical hacking teams, our white hat team, that's what they're called. So essentially people that work for Westpac that are trying to hack our own systems all the time, so that if there's a weakness, we find our own weakness and we plug that before hackers do.
What's the worst scam you've ever had to deal with?
We don't generally deal with scams in tech. There is some of that, but we're not a customer-facing service generally in technology. I happen to have worked in some of those teams in the past before I came to technology. So we see a lot, and unfortunately it's something that is getting bigger. So we need to get more people constantly to make sure that we have the right data, we have the right systems, we have the right algorithms that are constantly looking for what those scams are, and they're ever evolving. So the answer that I give you today, to be honest, could be very different to the answer I give you tomorrow. I
think one of the most fun ones to see are people who are trying to impersonate our CEO, saying like, oh, you need to send me money, or we need to complete this transaction immediately. And I think because it's coming from the CEO, you feel like you're more likely to answer it. Those kind of impersonations are always very interesting to look at.
Which country tends to have the most passion towards, hacking?
Passion. Again, it's not data that we're privy to. I can see there's lots of cybersecurity minds in the audience today, and I think we already had a couple at our booth as well. If you do want to hear more kind of detail about that stuff, feel free to come to our booth and we can tell you, we don't work as closely to the data in that sense. But you can come and have a chat and we can share with you what we can. But a lot of that data is, like I say, kept under lock and key. But not necessarily Turkey. That was an example. So maybe one down there, there's a few down the front here.
What makes Westpac better than other banks? Maybe more specific, ANZ.
From a customer perspective or an employment?
It's like cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity.
Security-wise, yeah.
Yep.
Well, we do have one of the biggest cyber arms in all the banks. We have over 500 people who work in cyber. We work really closely with the ASD and other big government bodies to actually make sure that we are pioneering cybersecurity for everyone. And cybersecurity is not necessarily we're not competing with each other in that kind of way. We're all looking to make sure that everyone across Australia is cyber safe. So we do make sure that we're teaching other banks our learnings and working together to make sure that everyone is
Team
not hacked.
sport. Cybersecurity is a team sport.
So what coding platforms do you use to produce your security systems?
Oh, that's not exactly public knowledge. That if you join our company, you'll definitely find out.
I will say, similar to the last presenters that were up here that said, we have so many tech teams. There was a statistic shared in our presentation that almost 20% of Westpac employees are in technology, and every tech team is doing something different. They're working with different systems. They're not all cybersecurity, of course. And so, we work with a wide range of coding languages. So have you worked, in terms of your grad program experience, did you find that there was a wide range, or have you not had?
This is my third rotation right now, but in every team that I've been in, it's always different platforms that we use and different programming languages that we go through.
So what kind of other jobs do you have besides cybersecurity in like Westpac?
Yeah, sure. I'm in the grad program currently, so I've been in 3 different teams. I was first in more of a business-facing team, but still in the kind of tech sphere. Then I moved into a cyber team, and now I'm in a finance tech team. So there's like thousands of different teams you can choose from. In the grad program alone, we get over 100 choices of where we want to go, and we can also self-source teams. So you can kind of go where your interests lie, if that makes sense. There's lots outside of cyber, and there's lots inside of cyber as well.
So much opportunity and possibility. I will just add to that, Sonia before mentioned that we've got our rotational grad programs. That's the one where you can kind of rotate through any tech team around the bank, which is really awesome. But if you find you have a passion for a particular type of technology, our 4 specialist programs that we offer are in data, cybersecurity, engineering, and robotics and intelligent automation. So that's just a few more examples as well.
Has AI made it easier or harder to detect people trying to hack your systems and things like that?
That's a good question.
I would say it's a bit of both. I think AI has definitely made it easier for us to analyze large, massive data in a much quicker pace and kind of look for key patterns and behavior, and also makes it easy for us to know what kind of attacks are going on all around the world. But obviously, once we get smarter, hackers are also really smart, and they seem to have way more time on their hands. And so they're definitely also utilizing AI massively to make their hacks even smarter. So definitely, again, like Swetha mentioned in the thing, very cat and mouse. We're always looking to beat each other and use AI as much as we can in that way, while still maintaining our data ethics and keeping customer data safe.
So what are the biggest cybersecurity threats that Westpac facing today?
It's a great question. Do you have an answer for that one, Sonia?
I don't fully have an answer. I'd just say that obviously because we're a bank with lots of money and lots of customer information, it would just mostly be different actors trying to compromise us, impersonate us in different ways. Come to our booth and I can get you a better answer.
I would say it's probably twofold in the sense that there's the cybersecurity threats for our customers, and we're constantly, we can do what we can do on our side to keep our customers safe, but there's also the element of educating our customers because when they're not with us, when they're not in the branch, when they're not on our app, we can't control what a customer does and what's coming their way. And so there's a big education piece in terms of community cybersecurity, and then of course there's us making sure that we're keeping our systems secure, that all of our staff are doing the right thing internally as well to make sure we're keeping everyone safe, staff, customers, communities. There's a big waving happening in the back.
How do you manage your time with the problem-solving part of the job?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say we have a lot of time during the day to kind of problem solve and use that aspect to get our jobs done. In the grad program, from a grad perspective, you get a lot of help if there are problems you're struggling to solve or if there are things you need help on. But yeah, I would say we have time to do it in our jobs. So yeah, we can do it.
I think adding on to that, the support system you get in a grad program or as a grad is immense. There's a lot of different avenues where you can go get help. So in terms of problem solving, whether or not you can solve it yourself, you've got your entire cohort of grads alongside you. So we've got nearly 40 of us this year or last year, just this year. 70 altogether, which is pretty crazy because you've got all these like-minded individuals where you can tap into their support systems as well.
Sorry for anyone that we didn't get to your questions, but feel free to come and see us at the booth. We'd love to answer those. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.